Okay. Well, I have some. We may zip through since you. Well, we have 3 doctoral students and 1 master's student, right? I'm going to kind of give some introductory information up front, which actually one other piece of information will help me kind of craft this or individualize this better for you that are here. Is anyone here a first-year student? First year. Okay. You folks are beyond first year? Second year, okay. Or later, okay. All right, well, what I wanted to do is then I'll just be brief on this because some of these slides apply more to master's students. There are many different ways of getting an advisor assigned, so just to cover it briefly. Different programs operate in very different ways. Some programs are going to assign an advisor to you, but the admissions committee will assign it. Sometimes you are assigned by the department's graduate advisor or the faculty member who's the program chair. And sometimes it's your choice, right? Predominantly for doctoral students, you have much more choice, right, in input in selecting your advisor. Some programs, especially in engineering, will have you do rotations the first year. So you get a chance to work with several different faculty. Did anyone here do rotations their first year? No one did that model. Okay. Hi, thanks for joining us. I asked if people could introduce themselves and tell me what degree program you're working on and which program.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. My name is Angelique Nevares Maez. I am from sociology. This is my second year PhD, working towards dissertation.
Great, wonderful, thank you. Okay, and I should have prefaced this first. So what I'll be talking about first up front is kind of the logistics of getting aligned with an advisor. A little bit later, we will talk about the options to change advisors, which is an option, although it has some limitations. And also, but the real core of this is how to optimize your relationship with your advisor. You know, how can you best work together and make it work for you? Okay, because it's a key relationship in your academic success. You know, you really depend a lot on that advisor to help steer you through a program and afford you opportunities that maximize your professional success. Okay, so these are different ways that people align, particularly at the master's level. Before I go on, though, is everybody familiar with this terminology? Does everybody know who the graduate advisor in your department is? Does anybody know? I see 1 nod, 2 nods. 3 no's, okay, or maybe. Okay, not all departments, but most departments have a staff person who either part-time or full-time has the title graduate advisor, maybe graduate studies coordinator, but it's usually a staff person, right, who helps you with the nuts and bolts, how to form these file forms, what kind of petition do I need in this example, so that kind of the paperwork, they may help in your first few weeks, getting you situated and started in your program. They may help with an orientation, but they're staff people designed to help you with kind of logistics. Okay, whereas the graduate program chair or the faculty member who's in charge of the graduate program takes that on as an additional responsibility within the department. But that person is also a resource for you, and we'll come back to that later. And if you don't know who your graduate advisor is, I urge you to find out who that person is, if indeed there's a few smaller departments that, you know, have all those tasks taken care of by the faculty person, but most departments have that staff resource for you. So some of you get to choose an advisor, and I'd like to hear from you in a minute how you chose your advisors. Since we're a small group, we can do this. Most doctoral students, especially, of course, look for the research specialty. You know, what area do I want to do further work in, and that's the person I'm going to target. And so often, as you, not always, but often at the doctoral level, you have a research area in mind, and you look at different universities and find out which faculty, you know, are expert in that area. And it might also be related not just to the topic, but their methods, their techniques. For example, in the social sciences, there's qualitative research, which is very different than what most of us are used to. I'm a physiologist, life scientist, so I'm more used to quantitative data, right? Objective quantitative data. But some fields use very different approaches. So there's, of course, all sorts of approaches and methods, techniques that may play into your choice. But there are other factors. For example, the experience level, the rank of the faculty member you're thinking about. Some students steer away. They think, that I want the most senior professor, right? I want the full professors. They're going to be the most knowledgeable, have the most resources, etc. That may be true, but I also urge you, if anyone here is still, or if in the future you might change an advisor, consider that some assistant professors offer very unique advantages. They usually have fewer students. They're very focused on doing well in their first 5 years, so they have the privilege of staying here after gaining tenure. So they're often highly motivated to work very closely with graduate students in getting a line of research going and running. So be careful. Don't assume that it's always the most senior person that's going to be the best advisor. This is one, especially if, and this is kind of a talk that should be targeted more towards people considering graduate school, but sometimes the number of advisees a person has, you might want to take into consideration. If you're competing with 15 other students for your advisor's time, that's a different ball game, right, than if it's just 2 or 3 others. So, and unfortunately, we can't expand the 24-hour clock. There's just so many hours in the day. So that's something to consider. Now, in some fields, it might be an advantage to have more fellow graduate students. It kind of depends. I can foresee some, especially qualitative research programs where you work in teams, and it might be an advantage. So, it depends, right, on the field and the type of research. Now, I'm going to ask some of you, how did, for any of you who had a choice in choosing your advisor, or you particularly targeted someone when you came here, what fed into your decision? Why did you choose the advisor you ended up with?
I actually changed advisors at the end of my second year.
Okay.
Starting third year, but initially when I came in, I chose on expertise.
Okay.
The field I wanted to study, and then when I switched, it was my interest changed a little, and the relationship wasn't working for me, so I looked for one that had a record of successful students.
Oh.
And
Very
also
good point.
overlapped with where my interests were going.
And how do you find out about that record of successful students?
Talk to
Or just
graduates.
talk, word of mouth in the department. Okay, good. Anybody else? Can you share why you chose your advisor?
I had initially chose, and I first looked at, we obviously have something in common with some research industry, and that's like the first thing I looked at. But I looked more into work, even if we don't see eye to eye on our message.
So
I'd rather have someone.
the interactive style was
Yeah.
important to you.
I'm a very hands-off person, so I'd rather have someone who's gonna not push me as much because I've already pushed myself.
Yeah.
So for me,
Okay.
it depended more on the type of relationship.
Okay. Anyway, I'm sorry, and I just realized I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Sue Bloomfield, an assistant provost in Office of Graduate and Professional Studies. I'm also 2/3 time professor in health and kinesiology. But physiology is my discipline. Do you mind, we asked if people could, because we're such a small, intimate group here today, if you could introduce yourself and tell us what degree you're working on and which program.
My name is Erika Garcia Villatoro. I'm an international student. I'm on a master's degree, and I'm from the Department of Nutrition, but I'm working in kinesiology.
Oh, there you are. Okay, great. All right. So, yeah, there are several interdisciplinary programs, and nutrition used to be an interdisciplinary one. Now it's part of a department, but I'm also on that graduate faculty of nutrition. Okay, so there's different reasons to choose. Now, we've already heard several allusions to a little bit about style, right? Advising style. There's a wide variety of styles among very successful advisors, all right? There's no one best or no one bad style per se. What's really critical is that it works for you, okay? So, I mean, I just picked, here are 4 different faculty members dressed in very different ways who might have very different advising styles, right? So, but I'm talking about personality style, interaction style. But in particular, one example, right? Some advisors are very laissez-faire, hands off, give you broad direction, give you some general instructions, say, go, do it, make it work. And some students love that, and some students hate it, right? On the other end of the spectrum would be what you might call the micromanager advisor, right? Every few days, he or she wants to see your data or what you're doing or a log or, very close oversight of your progress. And again, some students really dislike that, and other students much prefer it. They feel like they're getting the guidance they want and need. So you need to figure out what, works for you and what is optimal. Now, most of you are now in an advising relationship. Have you settled on an advisor yet? Okay, you have. Okay. So you're at the situation now where, okay, well, we're in the relationship now, let's make it work as best we can. Okay? So how do we do that? Here are some general suggestions I have, and I want you also thinking about how you can amplify these and add to it, because you might have some excellent ideas as well. Thanks for joining us. Do you mind? We're such a small group, we're having people introduce themselves and tell us what degree you're working on and in what program.
Okay, Duela Wilson, master's student in the Department of Nutrition.
That's good. That's good. All right, thank you. Glad you could join us. All right, so one key thing I will urge you to do, and this is in your own best interest, even independent of the advising relationship, but to take ownership. Be sure you are on top of all the important rules and regs that apply to you, all right, as a graduate student, master's or doctoral level, all right, and also all the important deadlines. And that's no small task, particularly in the last year, all right? And for master's students, this is especially critical because most master's programs are 2 years, maybe a little longer, but those deadlines come very quickly in your second year as you prepare. Particularly if you're a thesis student, because then there's a proposal, then the thesis, the defense itself, or there's a final exam. But those deadlines start creeping up on you. If you're a doctoral student, you should know your deadlines at least 18 months before you plan to graduate. Make sure you map them out, because you must, for example, have a degree plan filed some months in advance of your proposal meeting. This is if you are waiting till the very last minute to do all these things. Preferably, you would file your degree plan very early on and not have to worry about that deadline. Little quiz. Does anyone here know, how many of you have filed a degree plan already? 1, 2. So 5 of you have not yet. Okay. Do you know what the deadlines are to file your degree plan? What's your deadline? I mean, in terms of how many semesters or...
My deadline is actually the end of
And this is your first, third semester? The end of the first semester? End of the first year. Okay, yes. So again, all these, well, not all. There's some general deadlines that are university-wide, okay, that apply to everybody, master's or doctoral, but there are sometimes in your department, there might be slightly different or additional deadlines. So it's very, very important you check within your own program or department about what applies to your graduate program. Okay. So some of you doctoral students haven't yet filed a degree plan. Do you know when your deadline is? After how many semesters? Anybody? Third. Okay, and that's usual. Now some colleges they are free to set an earlier date. So do make sure you know in your own college or department what the deadline is, but that's the typical for doctoral students. And we ignore summer terms, so we call them the long semesters, fall or spring. So typically, by the end of your third long semester, PhD students need to have it filed. But some people wait and wait and wait. All right, so, and why you should take responsibility for these? I mean, you would think, well, isn't that my advisor's job? It would be excellent if all of us faculty members could keep all of these deadlines in our head. Unfortunately, if you have more than one graduate student, now you're trying to remember anywhere from 3 to 10 sets of deadlines, and it becomes impossible. All right? So it's very critical that you keep track of your deadlines and make sure you, in a polite but persistent way, keep your advisor apprised of those deadlines. Okay? All right. Very important. Secondly, I strongly advise at least once a month some kind of face-to-face meeting or discussion with your advisor. Some of you may have more frequent conversations, but the lack of communication that can pile up can snowball over time if you are not in some kind of regular conversation with your advisor. Some of you may see your mentor every day around the lab, all right? But what I'm talking about here is some focused one-on-one time, right? Where you really have the attention, eyes and ears of your mentor to discuss my progress, my issues, what advice do I need from you, okay? So that's different than just being around the lab, or can you show me how, I'm not sure about this step on the assay, what do we do here? You know, it's really about you and your academic progress, okay? This gets more and more critical as you're deeper and deeper into a research project or getting closer and closer to deadlines, right? Now, you can get some things accomplished with a phone call, particularly if they're out of town, right? Or maybe by email, but there are disadvantages. And I'm going to have you tell me what those disadvantages might be. You may have run into some of them already. Yes, when you get dozens, sometimes over several hundred, if you're an administrator, emails a day, it's just so easy to lose track of one email. Okay, unless you're really clever and urgent, or please read today, exclamation point. You know, I mean, it's very easy to miss an email. So that's one problem. Can you think of any other issues with phone calls or emails? Yeah. Imagine, think about maybe, I'll take an extreme, an emotional issue you talked through with somebody you know, all right? And when you're talking with someone face-to-face, you hear not only my words, right, but how I'm saying them, and you see my face, you see my body language. There's a lot of communication going on there, right? So next time you speak with your advisor, attend to that a little bit. Say, oh, what would I be missing if I was having this conversation on the phone instead of face-to-face, right? And it's very valuable for the advisor, too, right, to best understand, you know, how anxious is Sally about this deadline? How important is this? Or, geez, she's really struggling with this line of research right now, and I guess I better kick in here and give a little more guidance or a little more oversight. I mean, it really helps a lot both ways, right, in terms of communication. The miscommunication part is key, right? It's very easy. How many of you have read an email and thought, where does she get off? Why is she so angry? What's going on here? Right? You can impute a certain tone to words that really the sender didn't mean. And you may have had this happen to you, that somebody comes back and says, why are you so angry? And you say, I'm not angry. I just, you know. Some people write just real short, curt messages, right? And you can interpret it as somebody's upset with you. And they may not have intended that at all. But so this miscommunication can happen.
Well, it's more like a comment. In my case, I prefer email with my advisor. Because he used to talk too much. And
So it works better for you.
not all the time, because I try to ask him specific questions, and then he goes with answers.
Okay. All right. So your comment is that email, in your case, works better because you get a focused question and answer rather than a long tangent of... Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So there you go. That may well be. All right. So good point. Good point. So it may these points may not apply in all cases. That's an important thing to remember. Okay. What else? Now, how do you communicate? This is important. This is real important. And I specifically picked this picture of, this is actually me a good 10 years ago or so with one of my former doctoral students. Josh was the exemplar of how to communicate with an advisor who might have missed the deadline or the point the first time, right? Because it's when you have a deadline or you have to get a reference letter or there's something key that you need your advisor to respond to do, and you're getting more and more anxious as you get closer and closer to that deadline, all right? What do you do if you don't get a reply to, Dr. Smith, I need a reference to NSF by next Friday, and here's materials I think you need, and let me know if you need anything else. And 1 week later, you haven't heard anything. What do you do? Call back again. You met same mode of communication you used the first time?
Yes, just to be, because if you just show up in the office, it's probably not going to do it.
You don't think it would be a good thing to just show up at
least,
your advisor's office?
well, not just to show up, don't just show
Unannounced?
up,
Yeah.
not without warning, but they may not be in
Well, right, that's true. Okay. All right. I might come back to that. Anyone else? What do you do? I mean, this will happen to all of you at least once, probably many times in your career.
Try a different form of communication than the first one.
Uh-huh.
Just say, I just wanted to follow up to see if
Mhm.
there's the
Sure.
email and the message.
Okay. Yeah. And remember, sometimes emails do disappear. It actually does happen sometimes. Or you delete them by mistake, and while you're deleting a whole bunch of some spam or something that showed up right next to your message. So that might be a good idea. Try a different form of communication. What Josh taught me was the 3 Ps. To practice polite persistence. It might be in an email, again, or by a phone call, all right? But hardly anyone will object to your, when you recontact them, say, I know you're busy, I know there's a lot on your plate, but I have this important deadline, and I really need your help, and can you please, let me know when you can get to this, or if you need anything else, right? You probably said all of that the first time, but just, again, and as long as you're respectful of, a busy person's time, I can't imagine anyone being put off by that. You might have to do that twice. All right, so it's important. But polite persistence is a really good phrase to remember, right? Because it's your job, right, to make sure you're meeting your deadlines. And sometimes you need your advisor's help. When you should communicate, okay? We've talked about what, how, now, when. If you're hitting some bump in the road, right, might be you're not doing well in a course. You're worried about getting a C or a D. And this happens to many very good students once in a while for some wild reasons. It could be a problem you're having, say, with your research line, right, and you're really stuck, okay? You just dropped an expensive piece of equipment and you think there's $1,500 in repair costs here. Any bump in the road like this, it's best to, as soon as possible, make sure you get in touch with your advisor. I know this is counterintuitive for most students who think at mid-course, oh, I'm really worried, I'm going to be lucky to get a C in this course. Don't wait till the end of the semester. Give your advisor a heads up. Boy, this is a tough class, I'm really struggling, I'll do my best, but I may not have a good grade. And sometimes that advisor can help you strategize. What's the best option? Does everybody here know that graduate students can Q-drop a class? I think you only get one. Does anybody know the rule? I think it's just one. Yeah, but that means you can drop the class after the drop deadline, but with no repercussions. It might show up on the transcript as a drop. Didn't show up at all. Okay. So, there are different options that might be available to you that you are not aware of, that your advisor can help with. All right. So, I've had a couple students not advise me early on of an impending low grade, and they fell on academic probation. Now, that's not the end of the world. You get a second chance to bring your grade point up. Is everybody aware you have to maintain that 3.0? Okay, keep that very first job. Keep that grade point at 3.0 or higher. It's very much harder than, you can rectify it. You can come up with some strategies to bring the grade point back up. But don't rely on, I'll just work harder. Okay? You've got to change something. You've got to do something different, maybe take a different mix of classes. Don't take the hardest classes the next semester. But there's a number of things your advisor can help navigate through that. Delaying on asking advice can have some major consequences, right? You might miss deadlines. Being on academic probation, as I said, is a possibility. Again, it's not the end of the world. Many excellent grad students have been on probation for a semester and get off again. In fact, one of my very best and most productive doctoral students was on academic probation for actually 2 terms, but pulled it up and was incredibly successful down the road. You sure don't want to waste your time, and your advisor doesn't want to waste time, right, on any dead ends if you're working in the lab or on some project. And it certainly entails a lot of frustration, both for you and your advisor, right, if you haven't communicated about this. Okay, here's a real important part. Expectations. How many of you have had any interchange, or how many of you know clearly what your advisor expects of you?
That was the biggest mistake I made in my first advising relationship.
Oh.
That ended up being a key reason why I changed. We got too far away. And so
On expectations.
Yeah. And that's something that now with my new advisor from the very first meeting,
You talked about
we
it.
talked about it, and it's really clear.
Oh, good. And was it about expectations both ways?
Yeah.
You of your advisor and your advisor of you? Excellent.
Check back on it periodically.
Oh, very
Because
good.
It can cause a if you get too far away on those, in personal experience, it can cause a really, really tough situation that in my case I couldn't come back from.
The voice of experience.
How
Anybody
to
else?
talk is really
Yeah.
helpful.
Anybody else? Has anybody else had? How do you know what? Are you guessing what your advisor's expectations are? Do you ask other students? How do you know what?
I just kind of go along the lines of Troy. I was actually in an advising relationship that I didn't even know about. The professor assumed. So it was,
Wait, you were in a relationship you didn't know about? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I was actually really weirded out by it because
Wait, you didn't know the person was your advisor?
he thought he was my advisor.
Ooh, that is an unusual
He
situation.
automatically assumed he
That-
was my advisor.
Somebody assumed he was your advisor, but you did not know that.
No.
That is unusual, yes.
And that was
That's kind of the very basic
It's still
lack of
really-
communication.
It's still really awkward.
Still an issue. Ooh. Well, I hope you got that settled out. You now have a clear alignment with an advisor?
With, yeah,
The
when I
one-
actually asked,
Yeah. Okay.
but I can see how.
Yes. It's careful. It behooves everyone not to assume. It's always good to be explicit. Well, I can tell you there are several approaches to this. Some advisors are very formalized about expectations. Others are just, they'll figure it out. They'll talk to the other students, right? I learned, actually, I picked up this model from my boss, the current head of graduate and professional studies. Karen Butler Puri is an electrical engineer. Years ago, I heard her give a talk on the mentoring relationship or so forth. And she handed out the expectations she has of her graduate students. I'll just pass this out. This is what I devised. And this, and spread those out if you would down the rest. So I decided, well, this is a really good idea. I like this. So I wanted to type up, and please don't read it all right now, but you have it for later reading. But you can see that I have some general expectations, and some are very specific listed there. And on the second page, there are some, you divide it up by doctoral and master's students, because clearly those are 2 different categories. But down to, a general expectation about, when should you start presenting it at regional or national meetings? What's my expectation for manuscripts coming from doctoral students, or their involvement and engagement in research, using lab equipment. I mean, there's a whole range of possibilities, and this is, so this is for a life science lab. It could be very different in your areas, okay? But knowing especially what your advisor expects in terms of, well, should I be aiming to take a presentation to a national meeting? How do I get there? And obviously you need to help collect some data or work on a project enough to warrant your presenting it. But there's, and other types of disciplines might have other expectations. But I think it's very helpful, at a minimum, if you could ask those kinds of questions of your advisor up front. It will help me do the best job I can do if I understand clearly up front what you expect of me. So if you don't have something like that in writing from your mentor, I would strongly suggest ask if, oh, did I miss it? Did you ever hand out some expectations for us? Or, you know, or can I ask you a few questions? And again, most advisors, I think, would welcome that conversation, right? Oh, well, sure. Let's talk about what you should be doing in your first year or your second year or your third year. So that helps a lot, right? If you know what your targets are and what this key mentor expects of you. All right, well, that's one half of the equation, right? Now, what about the other half? Those you have of your advisor. I'm going to have you all help me complete this slide. What do you expect of your advisor? I'll just write some few brief phrases. Support, okay. And by supportive, are you talking, you could talk financial, intellectual, emotional, what are you looking for? Support on research efforts, okay. Okay. So support for the research you would like to do. Okay. Anyone else? Can you define that a little better? Oh, follow through on commitments. Commitment. Whoops. Time delay here. To me. Okay. Follow through on commitments to me. Good. What else? You must have some expectations. What are you looking for? What do you need from your mentor? Now, some master's degree programs, if you're a non-thesis student, for example, you may not see your advisor but once a semester. Does that apply to any of you here?
No, I was thinking about it.
Uh-huh. Okay, so let's see, how can we phrase that as an expectation? Kind of consistent, or kind of consistency on requests or research. Okay. Okay, research efforts. Okay. Anything else? What kind of advice are you looking for from an advisor?
Guidance on, I have to apply for a lot of permits, and I guess feedback on
So logistics, compliance issues.
work on it, but
and-
someone that's been doing it for 20 years.
Right, related to research. Okay.
Background.
Okay. Does that say it? What?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Is anybody looking for career advice? How about connections with your advisor's network? It can be extremely helpful, especially as you get closer to graduation. One key trick you might think about in the future, if you ever go to like particularly national meetings with your mentor, and if by chance you're in the same vicinity and your mentor is meeting with colleagues or friends or people they know at different institutions, I mean, these can be very valuable people for you to meet. Small example. I was at a meeting in Houston, a national meeting that happened to be in Houston, with one of my doctoral students, and we just spent some time going to a few different posters in a session. And I knew most of the PIs that were, and some were at their posters. One turned out to be doing the same kind of immunohistochemistry procedure that my doctoral student wanted to do, and she was so excited to say, and Dr. Plotkin, could you by chance send me your procedure for that particular, using that particular antibody for this? And she, oh, no problem, sure, email me and I'll send it next week. And Corinne was like, oh, yeah. That was some practical logistical help. But also meeting these people can be very important to expanding your professional network. They can, if 2 years later you're applying for a job or a postdoctoral position with that person, they have a face and a name in their head now, right? So kind of getting connected with your mentor's network, their professional network, can be very beneficial. How else can your advisor help you in your professional goals or success? Anything else we haven't covered? Well, okay. So, let me just add it to this one. Compliance would be IRBs or animal use protocols, but so I'll just write grant proposals in there too, okay? Or if you're writing an application for a fellowship or something, or there are lots of small grants that are open to students. I'm just going to put professional networking here as one other possibility. I'm going to ignore my typos for now. So there's lots of things. You could think. Can you think of any more before I wrap this up?
Open communication.
Say again.
Open communication.
Between the two of you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if the
What does that mean to you? Can you define open communication?
Not to be, if they are upset about something you've done, not to act like everything's okay and then have it turn into a big deal later. Like to put out the fires as they come up rather than let it get.
So, how would you phrase that expectation if say, one of these individuals were to go to their advisor and say they wanted that? Well, what I heard from you was, if I'm messing up, I want to know now.
Right.
Don't tell me 6 months from now. If you think I'm on the wrong path here, or chasing a wild goose, on this line of research inquiry, tell me now. Don't tell me after I've worked on it for 6 months, or pursued it, or I made a serious goof in a presentation, and I need to know about that, right? That's part of your training, right? To learn from your mistake. Constructive feedback in a timely fashion. Good, good. So, that's part of being a mentor and part of that relationship, right? You're an apprentice of sorts, right? You're learning the craft, you're learning the trade, and there's lots of parts to the trade, particularly at the doctoral level. There's all sorts of skills, right? Not just your particular research area or scholarly discipline, but things like statistics, or how to write manuscripts, or how to make presentations, or how to organize studies. There's a lot of parts. So, and you do that on a smaller scale as a master's student if you do a thesis. But there's a lot of things to learn. All right. Well, we can come back to this if we need to. Let me go back to the slide views now. Sometimes it's just not working. And you, and by not working, I mean over some months, you've made your best effort at communicating what you need, or your change of research interest, or whatever the issue might be. All right, and you have come to the conclusion, or there might just be a bad personality fit. I just don't think I can work well with this person. We're not meshing. I can't communicate well. Whatever the cause. You need to know that you can't. It's your right to change advisors. Okay, you don't have to leave the university if you can't work with that advisor. But there are some practical, logistical hurdles to doing this. Okay, it is the very most difficult situation is if you're an international student on a visa and you must have assistantship support, right, to stay. But for domestic students too, few people want to pay full freight going through graduate school, right? So financial support is an important part of the picture. So you can change advisors, but you have to be proactive in finding that new advisor. Let's stick for now to the simplest case that you're staying within your program, your degree program. I mean, I've seen some examples of people even jumping departments. It's a little more complicated, but it can be done. But then you have to have that conversation with someone about, well, it could be my research interest has changed. And of course, you want to be professional and diplomatic. If indeed your dysfunctional relationship is due to, say, some personality trait that is not particularly admirable or something, you don't spell that out, okay? You simply say, it's not working well for me, right? But I'm seeking other opportunities in the program. I'm very motivated to do X, Y, Z. Do you, by chance, have room in your program to take on any additional students? Do you have, by chance, any funding to support me, if that's an important issue? Or in a few cases, you can maintain the same assistantship. And sometimes when it's a departmental assistantship, or maybe you're on a TA, and then it's not so much an issue of teaching assistantship. The other complicated part of changing advisors is if you're kind of midstream with advisor number one, particularly if you're working on research that's funded by an external project. In other words, that mentor then has commitments, right, to, let's say, the Department of Defense or NIH or whoever is funding that work to get certain work done by a certain time. So if suddenly one of his key graduate assistants leaves, he or she is kind of stuck. And you may have committed to, you're halfway through, a set of analyses. Probably not the most professional behavior just to walk away from that, right? So ideally, finish your commitments with the previous advisor, or have some plan evolving in your head how to do that, right? So kind of owning up or finishing commitments with advisor number one are another important thing to take into mind. Now, there are a number of people you can talk with, even if you're just thinking about this, okay? That grad advisor in your department, the staff person is one resource, right? The chair of graduate programs in your department, the faculty member, is another source. I would start your conversation with asking, can you please keep this conversation confidential? Because it's a little bit sensitive sometimes, especially if somebody's losing someone who's working heavily on projects. But I just want to let you know, it's your right to change advisors if things are really, really not working. Okay? The ideal is you finish with your first advisor. It's much smoother, it's much more efficient, but we recognize that in some small fraction of cases, it doesn't work. Okay? And sometimes it's just truly my research interests change. I realized once I got started on this, it's not what I thought it was going to be like. And I know my friends are working on this fascinating project, and that's really much closer to what my professional goal is. Okay? So there's many reasons. Now, another option is to come to our office and speak with one of the ombudsmen. This is a very strange word in English. Ombudsman, has anybody heard that before? Okay, an ombudsperson, in this case anyway, is someone you can speak to in confidence, who is technically neutral. I mean, just to hear what the problem is and then to offer and discuss with you potential solutions, how to work around this problem, how to resolve it, what your resources are, what the rules are pertaining to this that you need to be aware of, but to help you find a solution. So it's a talk in confidence. A few colleges, maybe even a few departments have their own ombudsman, but you need to ask, do you have an ombudsman here for graduate students? More typically in the college, they'll have an ombudsman for faculty members. So any one of these people you could talk with for advice if you don't know where to start. Okay. So any questions or discussion about that? Okay. We have one person here who's already been through the process. Does any of that ring true to you, or can you add additional tips here?
I don't know the chair of your graduate program or the graduate assistant. When I was trying to work things out, they were ended up changing. They were really, really supportive because they knew in depth the situation. So when I approached a new advisor, if I didn't want to go into all the details, I could say you can refer to so-and-so who's the chair of the graduate program and they can fill you in, because I had some drama associated with mine. And so I approached new advisors with, I changed what I want to do because that was also true, and I had some issues. If you want to know more about the details, contact. So it came from
Up here.
up here to them, and then I also had the graduate, the chair of the graduate program was someone that I listed as a recommendation when I approached other advisors. So even if you're happy with your advisor, the chair of the graduate program in my case was
Still good resources.
really, really wonderful resource, and has been for several of the people in my cohort too. So
How many people here know who the grad advisor is in your program? Oh, most of you. Good. Find out who yours is. Okay. All right. Good points. Thank you. Okay. If you change your advisor, and also if you change someone on your committee, which might come up too, does everyone here know what your committee is? It's those 2 or 3 other faculty members that you are required to have on your thesis or dissertation committee, right? You have to have them to file a degree plan, right? So that's another part of building your degree plan. But if you change any of those, but particularly your advisor, there might be some departmental procedure, okay? But at a minimum, with the Office of Graduate and Professional Studies, you must file this petition, all right? And here's the URL. I believe, Robert, do you know if we're reposting these presentations on our website? I know I have an older version of this up there.
We are definitely posting the recordings of these.
The recordings, okay. Well, I think if you simply go to, this should be OGAPS, new name. But if you just search for petition change of committee, you'll find the form, okay?
where you upload your degree plan, it's all
Oh, it's all now on the DPSS system, right,
in there.
right.
It's so easy.
Good, so all online. Although you have to have signatures, I think. Do they have,
It's
I think
all
they,
online. Mine was all online.
really? Even for this one?
Everyone
Okay.
had to approve it and check
Yeah.
it online.
Oh, okay, all right. So all members of the committee have to. So that's just so everybody's apprised of the change, right, and knows about it. Ideally, in the ideal world, all right, faculty members would be collegial and say, oh, geez, Jane, one of my students has decided, I understand she's decided to switch to, your advisement, and I'm going to miss her, but okay, best of luck, and I hope things work well. Here's her strengths, here's her weaknesses, and so forth. Or even better, the new advisor comes to me and says, explains the situation, and smooths over any ruffled feathers, and you would have those collegial conversations. Doesn't always happen, though. Okay, so these mechanisms are just to make sure that people are apprised of what the change is. Right? But you do have the right, and it is your responsibility to do what you need to do to make sure you're going to be successful in your program. Okay, and in moving towards your professional goals. Whoops. So there's my contact information, and we can open this up now to any general questions or advice you might want to share with the rest of the group, or queries. Can you think of anything else?
I guess a little bit to go off of my last comment. How do you deal with people who bring drama? Like,
Oh,
It's
that's
so
an
hard.
excellent question.
I've
How
been
do you
struggling
deal
with that.
with dramatic people who inject drama? All right. And are these faculty people?
yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, in general, I mean, anytime you're dealing with a lot of drama, I'll just tell you how I feel is a successful response. First, you want to avoid being dramatic back. That just adds fuel to the fire, right? Number 2, you want to keep it professional. That's part of, keeping your cool, right? Keep it professional. Try to be as objective as possible. Reflect back. Do I understand you to say that you believe I'm your advisee, but I understand Dr. Jones is my advisor? Did I hear correct? I mean, just reflecting back in a polite way, right, if there's some confusion. This is obviously very hard to do if it's in person, right? I got a good question. If you get an email from someone that's full of exclamation points or sounds really angry, a lot of drama, how should you respond to that email? Should you respond to that email?
I would. If you're advice, you have to. But
Do you have to respond by an email?
no, you don't
Yeah.
have to respond by email. But if you're starting to get angry at the email or starting to feel some type of way about it,
Email. How many have had this experience that after one miscommunication on email, it's time to quit email? I mean, it's just because if you keep coming back on it, oh boy, I've seen it spiral downwards really fast. It might be important to acknowledge the email, saying, thanks for these comments, and I'll get back to you, give it time. But I prefer to do it in person or in writing, but hard copy. Always be a very good rule to follow with all emails. Keep it professional, right? Assume somebody else will read your emails at some point in time, right? May not happen, but if somebody reads your emails, would they get a picture of you as a professional person, right? That's
I would say, counsel with graduate advisor or the department or a graduate program to explain if someone's causing a lot of drama, you're not sure how to handle it, and you don't want to talk to your advisor directly
Yeah.
about it.
But that's the time to check with those other folks.
That were questionable, I would go to my grad advisor.
Get
and I would
advice.
Ask them, am I overreacting to this? Is this a normal way to talk to?
Yeah, good reality check.
If the emails are, hopefully they're not, but if they seem to be unprofessional, keep them. Respond professionally yourself. But emails are nice because they're written down and you have a record of them. So use that to your benefit. Not everyone realizes that.
Yeah. So yes, you will learn in any profession. It's very wise to keep the drama out of written emails, which can be broadcast very widely, very quickly. So be very cautious, and that's why any drama is best handled in person, although it is hard, right? But if you have to have a difficult conversation with someone, in fact, I'm doing one later today. And I never go into one of those conversations without a bullet list of what I want to say. Right? What are my key points? So if it's going to be a difficult conversation where you're getting emotional or stressed, you want to make sure I have that bullet list of important points, right? And expressed in a polite way, right? Professional way. And again, the Ombud service in our office is designed for this too. If you're really stuck, how do I handle this situation? Or I need to change advisors and I have no clue about how I'm going to navigate this, given this situation. Or, there's any number of issues that can come up that we hear about in our Ombud's capacity, but we're happy to sit down and talk with you, and it's confidential. There's only a few exceptions to that confidence. If we become aware of, civil rights discrimination or gender discrimination or sexual harassment or abuse, we're obligated to move on that in some way. But short of that, which is in the minority, right? It's usually more just gnarly personal relationships or issues with your success here as a graduate student. Can you think of anything else? All right. Well, I hope some of this has been helpful. I strongly urge you to take ownership, be the captain of your ship, right? Know your deadlines, know the rules and regs that apply to you within your department. How many of you here know where you can find within your program or department like an advising handbook that's directed to graduate students? Anybody here know where to find that? One of you, two of you, three of you? Good. Half, almost half. You need to ask about that. Nutrition, I know, does have an advising handbook. The title might be slightly different, but there is one somewhere online. Check it out. So construction science and, help me with your program? Mechanical. Okay, I honestly don't know if your programs have something like that online, but they should. I constantly kind of harangue graduate advisors and faculty chairs that you really need to have this online, because how do people know what the expectations are, or rules, especially if it's different from university rules? Remember, departments have a lot of latitude to establish more stringent rules or additional exams or whatever it might be beyond what the university as a whole requires. So it's very important to know what your program stipulates. Okay. Well, let's end up there. Thank you very much for coming. I hope